welcome back to Talkoffamepod. It's your host, Kylie Montini. On today's episode, we're joined by co-owner of the Elevated Firm, which helps local businesses create brand and consistency across all digital platforms, speaker and a fashion and beauty blogger, Jenna Dillulio. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, Jenna. I'm super excited to chat with you today. I'm super excited.
Thank you, Kylie. And you nailed my name, girl. You got it down.
I know, right? I was thinking to myself while I was doing it. I was like, am I gonna get it wrong? Am I getting it right? Like, I was like, oh, I have to. Like, I kind of had a feeling I was gonna get it wrong. I'm
You
scared.
got it.
Wait, actually?
Yeah.
Oh my God, no way. Oh yeah, I'm so surprised I actually got it right. Not actually made my day now. But you had some experiences with sobriety, alcoholism that which you're kind of pretty open about with interviews and stuff like that, social media. Like, can you like if people don't know your story or kind of experience, like, can you tell us more about it if people don't know?
Yeah, I guess if I could summarize, I got sober in 2017 and I really struggled with alcoholism like my whole life, I feel like. But in your early like 20s and really in your 20s in general, I feel like it's so normalized to like go out and
Mhm.
binge drink and get drunk. And so it was really hard for me to recognize that it was an actual problem at that time. And then I got into my 30s and my alcoholism just started to progress more and more and more. I was drinking more days out of the week. And that's how alcoholism is. It's not like you wake up one day and you just start drinking every single day. It's a slow progression that goes from like 1 day to 2 days to 3 days.
Mhm.
And so in my 30s, I started seeing a therapist and come to find out I had alcoholism after getting myself into a lot of trouble with jobs and drinking and driving. And um, when I got sober, I realized that like no one was talking about alcoholism openly online that I could find. Like I wanted, when I was really like relapsing and struggling and really wanted to like stick to sobriety, I got on social media and I was like, I just want to see someone that looks like me, that looks like I do, talks like I do, that's around my age, that doesn't drink. Like, where are these people? Like, do they even
Mhm.
exist?
Yeah.
And I was so afraid that I'd never have fun again. And to me, when I got on social media, that's all I saw was like other people my age that were drinking, going out, movies, commercials, TV shows. Everywhere I looked, it was like people were drinking to have fun. So once I got sober, I decided I wanted to be that for somebody else. So I shared a little bit whenever I hit like 6 months of sobriety. It was very like vague, but like I added into this post that like I hadn't had alcohol in 6 months. And it was like overwhelming. People like either curious or like congratulating me, or they knew someone that had quit drinking. And so I realized there was a gap there. And I just continued to share and share and share and share. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I like over 5 years in? And I'm still sharing and it's still resonating with people. But the difference is now I feel like is we have such a community on social media with people of all genders, ages, creeds that are being open and loud about their sobriety. And what that does is it shines a light for others to feel comfortable to say, you know what, I have an issue, maybe I should look into this and maybe I could do this too.
And like I know like with you like with being kind of like alcoholic, a lot of people like don't often like to talk about their issues, especially alcohol. Like my
Mm-hmm.
grandfather took alcohol and like drank like multiple times a week and like kind of like died from it from alcohol and stuff like that. It's just like alcohol is such a kind of a big thing, especially like when you're in like your mid 20s. Alcohol is kind of like a big thing, like especially in your mid 20s because you're in your college years or just getting out of college. So of course
Yeah.
it's gonna be a big thing, but then people don't often realize that like it's a problem. Like even if you drink
Mhm.
multiple times a week, like they kind of don't realize it because I think a lot of people take alcohol as like a personal escape from problems they're having in their own lives that they don't
Oh
like
yeah.
like it's
It's
kind of
like,
like a step back.
yeah, it's like normalized as a coping mechanism when it's not a healthy coping mechanism at all. Like there's so many other healthier, beneficial ways to cope with anything that you have going on, be it stress, if you have anger going on, if you have sadness going on, there's so many other ways that will help you and will be more productive in your healing than alcohol.
Like you, did you grow up with kind of like alcohol, like with your father or someone in your family
Yes.
like do alcohol?
Yes. So I grew up in West Virginia, and I always say, like, we're so lucky right now in the time that we're living in. Like, look, I'm on a podcast right now and I get to
Mhm.
talk about things that I've been through, and somebody else could listen to this and they could say, oh my gosh, that sounds just like me. And it could strike something for this person to reach out, go to rehab, or go pick up the phone and finally take the leap and go talk to someone in therapy. Where, in the early 90s, in the late 80s, like this was not available, and certainly not in West Virginia. It's so
Mhm.
rural there, it's so backwoods. And I always like to start out with saying, like, my parents did the best that they could do with what they had. Like, they are, like, I love them so much. They're here right now. They're in my house, and I just, like, I love them so much, and they're the best grandparents. um but they didn't have the tools and the resources that we have today. They did not have that. Like, I even think about being postpartum, and there are so many hormones and emotions that women go through, and I think, like, about my mom, like, she was just alone, like, just alone to, like, process all of these things. So my dad did struggle with alcoholism my whole life. And it was something that I swore I would never, I would never become. I didn't even drink whenever I was in high school. I didn't even experiment with it until I got into college. And like the first time that I drank, I completely blacked out. And that should, if I would have been knowledgeable in the disease of addiction, and we would have openly talked about it as a family, then maybe I would have been aware that that was a red flag, because it's not really, like, normal to do blackout when you're drinking. Like, it's very actually detrimental to you and your health. And so, yeah, my dad struggled with alcoholism for a really long time.
Like how did like that like your father drinking like your childhood and stuff kind of affect you personally? Like did it kind of damage you or did it kind of like, oh my dad's an alcoholic, like it's just like I'm just gonna move on with my life? Like were you ever kind of embarrassed of that? Or is it kind of like I'm just gonna move on from it?
Well, I think it was normalized for me for a long time until I realized that it, there were things that would happen that would make me sad and it would make me stressed. And I'm the oldest. And so I felt the need to, like, protect and, like, stand up for my mom and my brother. And I think that probably up until, like, my middle school years, whenever I was hitting puberty and I, like, was aware more of things, it was normalized. Like, it was just like, oh, my dad would be like, go get me a beer out of the refrigerator. And I would just go and I'd get him beer and I'd bring it back to him. Like, that was just what I knew.
Hmm.
And I think, like, then I realized that it was a problem. And in high school, I took my very first psychology class, and I learned about addiction and I learned about psychology. And I remember taking it thinking, like, oh my, I found the golden ticket. Like, I found this thing that's going to fix my family.
Hmm.
But the way that I had approached my dad during that time was, like, just shaming him and saying, you need to get help. You are, like, you're messing up our family. Why can't you just stop? And it was because I didn't know enough about addiction and the disease of it and how it works.
Like with like be especially being in high school, like middle school, or so in those kind of like younger years, like sometimes you think you know everything, but you most likely don't know everything. It's just like with my grandfather, like with he passed away before I was born, but it's like with the experiences my parents told, my family told, it's just like even though like his experiences I didn't live for, it still affects me since I'm his
Mhm.
granddaughter. That's like what like sometimes you think like, oh, should I ever drink? Like I don't want to become an alcoholic like he did, or how
Mhm.
like you just don't want to become the thing he did, like
Yeah.
your example, your family did. It's like, of course, it was a horrible thing, but it's like you do not want to kind of experience or get kind of that sickness, like that sickness of it.
Yeah, for sure. And there's like things that are like in our control, and then there's things that are totally out of our control. Because as much as I was aware of my dad's addiction, there was so much like genetically that was out of my control that like as much as I said I didn't want to become that, I did,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a part of my environment. And they're able to actually trace back now that it is hereditary. Addiction is hereditary.
Mm-hmm. And like, how do you how do you stay sober like after you kind of stopped drinking back in 2017? Like, how do you kind of deal with that process of not drinking while you see all these social media posts of with about your friends or people that you know and stuff? Like, how do you kind of deal with that?
Well, I think one was therapy. Like without therapy, I would not have been able to do it. And I describe it as like it was like a just as much as it was a slow build for me to like get to where I was in my addiction, it was like a slow build to get me to where I was in my recovery, because I forever used alcohol as a coping mechanism. Like I used it not just to cope, like if I was happy, if I was sad, if I was stressed, if I was sad, like any emotion, like the Super Bowl's going on, I'm my birthday, I have like all these things, I would use alcohol. And so I had to develop new coping skills. And just being aware of addiction like doesn't mean that you can stay sober. I wish that was the
Mm-hmm.
case. Has a magic pill. But it took a long time for me to develop new coping skills and have new tools in my toolbox. And like while I was trying to get sober, it was just that like alcohol became less and less of a shiny thing for me to pick up. And
Mm-hmm.
I used my mom, my best friend, and my now husband as like an accountability partner. Like I said, listen, if I call you and I say that I want to drink, or my husband, like if I just say like, hey, I want to drink, I need you to hold me accountable, because I had failed myself like so many times. Because I'd be like, I'm really gonna do it. I'm gonna stay sober this weekend. And then I would like just fall off the wagon because I wasn't allowing somebody else to help me. um and so I think that would be like the the three like top tips I'd have. It's like develop new coping skills, number one. Have like some type of accountability. Some people go to AA, where they have a sponsor. I just relied on people that I love. Um and yeah, it was a slow build, but I got there.
Yeah, like this is like you need to have like those people that kind of held you accountable, like whether it's
Mhm.
like, your parents, your sister, your or whatever your siblings, your best
Mhm.
friend, or your neighbor, someone that like you're close to. Because like if you have those people that will hold you accountable, whether it's like drinking, going out partying, or whatever it is, like you all just has to be that one person that lives in your house or whatever it is, and be like, hey, you're not doing that. Like
Yeah.
that's I know you want to, but it's like do something else and they don't do that. Because like
Yeah.
even though like you want to do it so bad that you're like you just need that person or you need something to pop up in your head to be like, hey, I know I want to do that bad, but it's like if I want to become a better person and stop this, then I need to be held accountable, whether it's myself doing it or someone around me doing it.
Yeah.
But like, how can like people support each other when like they're in sobriety? Like, what was like still drinking or doing sobriety now?
Do you mean like how did like my husband and my mom and my
Oh yeah,
friends support me?
yeah.
So, I think that the the best way to support someone is to ask them how they want to be supported. I like needed someone to like physically say to me, like, don't drink. I needed that like accountability. I have people that ask me all the time, like, how can I'm going to a party this weekend. Like, how can I support my friend? I know they like just recently like quit drinking a month ago, and like maybe I shouldn't drink too. And like for me in those social situations, like I feel very uncomfortable when someone feels like the need without asking, like to just be like, I'm not going to drink either because you're going to be there. But like I want my friends, like, if you want to have a couple drinks, like please, like by all means, like I don't want
Mm,
you to like restrict yourself on account of me.
yeah.
And so asks the person, like, hey, I want to support you the best way that I can. What can I do to be a good friend to you whenever we're at this party? Like, would you rather me? Like, I can stay sober with you, or like to, and really see like how they want your support to be. Like, for my husband, for the first year that I was sober, like, he didn't drink around me because it was very triggering. It would be like if you were on like the world's most like restricted diet and you could not have any sugar at all at any time for any reason, and someone's eating cake in front of you. And so, but now like he can drink, he'll have cocktails here and there, and like I'm not triggered at all by it. But I would say like have an open conversation with your loved one or your friend and find out the way that they want to be supported.
For sure, because like the key to having kind of like like to live like your life and to
Mhm.
kind of stop what you're like struggling with is like have a good support system. Because if you have a good support system, then you would have like a better key to getting through that process of alcoholism or friendships or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And like, do you think like alcohol has like changed you as a person? Like, do you think it has like affected you a lot?
I will say that I don't regret one single day of my life, even like all of the really bad things that I've been through, because it's brought me to where I am. And then I'm able to do things like this. Like I'm able to talk to you and I'm able
Mhm.
to share my story. And then someone else could listen to this and it could really make an impact on their lives. And even using like my social media. So I feel like in the weirdest way, it's like alcohol has, I feel like, such a bad influence like on society.
Mhm.
But I feel like for me, if I could say anything, I feel like I'm still thankful for everything that I went through because it has molded me into who I am. And
Mhm.
I've grown so much stronger because of it. Like, and I know now how absolutely like phenomenal life can be without it. Like, I'm a better mother because of this. I'm a better friend, daughter, wife, like without alcohol.
It's just like no matter like what life brings, like whether it's like becoming sober or whatever it is, like I know with me, like I suffer with anxiety, depression my whole life. And so like with that, like I wouldn't be the person I am without going through that whole process. Is that like no matter how hard life gets for you, whether you're a teenager, adult, or a kid, it's just like you should be kind of not grateful, but like take advantage of what life is bringing to you at that time. Because like no matter what you're going through at that specific time, whether it's like a divorce or having kids or depression, anxiety, whatever it is that you're going through, it teaches you. Like no matter
Mm-hmm.
each step of your life you learn something different, whether it's your experience, your friend's experience, or a loved one's experiences, or someone that like, or someone from work, whether it's like doing a one-on-one podcast, is like if you speak up about like what you're going through, it's just like it won't only help yourself and only talk about, but it'll help people that are listening to it to think like, oh, you're not alone in that process.
What I literally was just going to say that it's like, no matter what, you might feel like whatever you're going through right now is like you're so alone in it, but I promise you, you're not alone. Like there are so many other people that are going through the same thing, and they probably feel alone too in going through it. But the internet is wild, man. Like you can find people like especially like I said, even in postpartum, like there are some things that I go through that I'm like, is this normal? And like I'll throw it up on my page, and then I have like 45 women that are immediately like, I went through the same thing. And I'm like, okay.
Perfect. I'm not alone, people. Like
Yeah.
this is like that's the key to social media. So like you just post something, you'll be like, "Hey, am I alone in this project?"
Yeah.
And like if someone raise their hand, be like, "I am." Like I'm going for the same exact thing. Like you're not alone. Like
Yeah.
that's what social media is for. Like
Yeah.
this is why I love social media. Is that like, you can connect with somebody that's basically across the world from you. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like, was it like hard for you to kind of share your story after becoming like sober? Like, was it hard to talk to people about it at first?
Yeah. It definitely was at first. It was like really like ashamed, I guess, because would I the job that I had was in corporate America. So there was like a lot of social events that I had to go to. And at first it was really hard for me to say like out loud, like, I don't drink alcohol. Like, and then you go places where people are used to seeing you with a drink in your hand and they're like, wait, like, why aren't you drinking?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very peer pressury in any age range. Like I will tell you that for some reason, the only drug in the world that people will like ask you why you're not taking it and doing it is alcohol. Like it
Mm-hmm.
blows people's minds when you're at like a wedding or you're out at a bar and you're not drinking. Like they're like, wait, what? And I used to be that person. I used to be that piece of garbage that would be like, but you don't even drink alcohol? Like, wow, like you must be a total loser. And like for me, it was hard for me to say that out loud to someone. Like it made me very uncomfortable. That's why I needed my husband there to be like my buddy, because like we would just be like, oh, like, you know, I'm taking an antibiotic right now, or it's just like something that I'm trying for health purposes. So people wouldn't like badger. My in-laws every single year do dry January. They're in their 50s. And every single year they tell me about how they get peer pressured into drinking during dry January because people are just like, you're going to do dry January. Why aren't you drinking? And they're in their 50s. Like, uh, guys, let's quit peer pressuring.
Yeah. No matter how old you are, like peer pressuring doesn't stop. It
No.
never stops now how old you are. Even like you're in college or a teenager, like it never stops.
Yeah.
And like in teenagers and young adults get worse, I think.
Yeah.
But like what are some ways like people can like get better if they suffer from alcohol? Like how can make people kind of get better and like grow as a person?
I think the, I think my best piece of advice for this would be like, if I today needed to an electrician to come to my house and rewire a light switch, I would have absolutely no idea how to do it. And I don't want to electrocute myself. So I would call someone that knows what they're doing. And I think the best thing to do is to reach out for help and to not be ashamed, because there's help available, number one, for you to take advantage of. And there's so many people that take advantage of the help, and that's what it's there for. Like
Mhm.
I could not with 100% certainty, I could not have gotten sober without my therapist if I didn't make that appointment, because the crazy thing about addiction is it's a disease that you hold the key to. Like it's inside of you, and you have to make the call. Like you have to do it for yourself, whether it's setting up therapy or counseling or going to support groups or going to AA or making the call to go to rehab. Like you have to make that choice for yourself. And reaching out for help is just the best way, because sometimes we need it. You need to figure out from somebody else that's unbiased, like, what do I need to do here? And then they can point you in the right direction.
That's exactly right. It's not like not asking for help is not a bad thing at all. Like
Mm-mm.
you might like to yourself, like asking for help is kind of like to some people a weakness. Like
Mm-hmm.
some people like oftentimes like, oh, if I ask for help, like I was seen, like I can't get through things. But then
Mm-hmm.
like asking help is what makes you stronger as a person. It's that like at least like you're talking about it. At least like you are um designed to get better as a person, whether it's like going to rehab or talking to people around you about your problems. It's like no matter if you talk about it, it'll help you get out there out of your system. Because if you don't talk about it, it would just make you more angry as time goes on with your life.
Yeah. And just like you said, like when you're in middle school or a teenager, like you think you know it all. And I think like that can go through like your whole life. Like I know for me, like I thought I knew it all. I thought I would like shame my dad forever about drinking. And I thought that that was the answer. And it definitely isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if you like have ever questioned like, oh, do I drink too much? Or like, what is drinking a lot? Or if like right now it's running through your mind, like, I wonder how much she was drinking. I wonder if like I was drinking some, like, then you probably have a problem. Like you probably, that was like what I was doing. I would get on and I would Google like, is like 2 bottles of wine a night too much? Like, is 1 bottle of wine a night too much? Like if you are looking for some type of like someone to say like, hey, yeah, it is. Cause you can get on a Reddit thread and someone will be like, two bottles of wine a night is healthy for your heart. And it'll just put your mind at ease. Like, okay, I'm okay. Like, trust me, you can find people that will agree with you. But if you have ever thought that, or you have done that, like what is too much to drink, then you probably have a problem and you should reach out for help.
For sure. And like you are very passionate about makeup and fashion, all these things. And like I have to ask you, like, what are some of your favorite brands I like you like to shop from? Like whether it's like makeup. I know like on your website, like you have like a bunch of makeup things, shopping, all these stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I don't think I've ever been asked this. Okay, so I would say brands. So clothing wise, I do a lot of my shopping on Amazon, but for my jeans, I love Abercrombie. They're like my top fave. And I guess like overall, I like Abercrombie. I feel like Abercrombie is a brand that like, first of all, I wore many moons ago in high school. And I feel like they kind of have like grown too with their audience. Like,
Mhm.
or maybe, I mean, maybe I just dress totally immature, but I still love Abercrombie. um, and then Amazon, I love shopping from. It's like one of my favorites because I feel like it's so affordable. Target, yeah, I would say those are like my top three.
I know Amazon is like me and my mom like shop Amazon like each week. It's like
It's so good.
it has everything on there, right? It has everything.
Yeah,
Like clothes, jeans, baby things, like it has everything.
everything. Food. You can get anything from
Yeah,
Amazon.
you get anything, right? It's just like, can you even have food? Like, did he ship it to you? Like, what's better than that? Like, but like the last thing I have to ask you is like, what is some advice for people that are kind of like struggling mentally or just like struggling with alcohol or anything like that?
I would say again, like you're not alone. Everything is fixable, and you are so worthy and you are so capable of love, of reaching new heights. There's peaks and valleys in all of our lives. Like there's dips and then there's highs. And to get to those high points, like sometimes we hit a dip, and reaching out to help is just the best thing that you can do. If you're feeling stuck and you're feeling lost, like I stay with a therapist because I never want to feel like I don't have that resource to reach out to. And there are things that I work on every single week, and I am okay with that. Like, I feel like I will constantly be evolving for the rest of my life and trying to be better than I was yesterday. And that includes me finding areas of opportunity that I can work on with myself. And especially now that I have my daughter, I want to be the best that I can be for her, both physically and mentally. And so, yeah, just know that you're not alone and there's help out there. There's so many resources that are available.
You're exactly right. Like, don't like be afraid to ask for help. Like we said, it's not like
Mm-hmm.
asking for help is a strength that like
Yeah.
will make you make a better life. Like you'll help you become a better person, a better daughter, husband, whatever it is. Because like if you ask for help, it'll it'll make you better as a person and whatever you're going through. It's not a
Yeah.
bad thing to ask for help. It's like when I was young, like I used to think like that asking for help was a weakness. I used to think like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I shouldn't ask for help. But now I realize that like asking for help is not bad as you think. It's just your
Yeah.
mind telling you that like it's just like people might see it as like, oh, you're failing or something. But it's like
Yeah.
as long as you're asking for help, it makes you strong. It makes you
Yeah.
like like very strong for asking for help and telling people about what you're going through.
Yeah.
And like I just want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much. I love chatting with you. You're so inspiring and I really appreciate you taking the time and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you everyone for listening to this episode and I hope you guys enjoy listening to Jenna, her story. Her story is so inspiring and yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Jenna. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course, have a great rest of your day, Jenna.
Thanks, you too.